The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, this is Ashley at CFRE. I hope that you're doing well. I'm actually just going to adjust my camera here for a second if I can. Let's see if I can make this any better. Maybe not. Let's turn it off for a quick sec. Thanks for joining us today for the CFRE application webinar. I'm coming to you from Baltimore today, and we are going to go through our presentation about everything you need to know for the application. I'm sorry, for the exam, and we will stop periodically to answer your questions. So if you have questions, please feel free to type those into the question pane, and Paul and Christine on the back end will be answering those for us. We are going to go ahead and jump on in here. We will be recording the webinar, and we'll get started with a couple FAQs. One is that the application is $875 US at the regular rate, or $700 if you are the member of a participating organization. So that would be like an AFP, AHP, Canadian Association of Gift Planners. The full list is on our website. We will be sending you a copy of the slides as well as a recording of this within 24 hours to the email address you used to register. If you don't see it in 24 hours, please check your spam folder before you reach out to us. I'm also going to reference the test content outline, the glossary, the candidate handbook. They're all in the email as well that you're going to receive in 24 hours, and you will also be able to find those on our website should you lose that email. And today you're going to earn yourself 1 point in non-fundraising education towards your application requirements. So with that, we are going to launch our first poll here. Let's see if this is going to cooperate. No, it doesn't want to launch this poll. Let's see why not. Give me 1 second here. Oh, okay, there we go. All right, so the poll should be open to you right now. And we are asking, where are you in your CFRE process? So have you started your application? Are you working on your application? Or have you already submitted it and all you need to do is to sit for the exam? All right, I'm going to close the poll in 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. All right, and let's take a look at the results together. Let's see. All right, so it looks like the majority of people who are joining us today have started their application. We have a couple people who haven't started. That's no problem. We will talk a little bit about that. We are mostly focusing today on the exam itself, but if you've not yet started your application, just remember that it's free to do so on our website. The exam is offered 4 times a year, and you can see on your screen here the 4 test windows. We offer the exam in every month aside from December, and if you want to sit for the exam in a particular test window, you will need to have your application submitted by the deadline. So what I mean by that is if you want to sit for the exam in this July 15th to September 15th test window, the last day you can submit your application is July 15th. So just keep that in mind. If you don't want to sit for the exam in that window, you just need to make sure that it's in at the latest date of the deadline of the window that you do want to sit for the exam in. Keep in mind that once your application is approved, you're going to have 1 year to sit for the exam. So we give you plenty of study time. You won't feel rushed. Now, let's take a look at what to expect about the exam. It is fully computer-based, and it is 200 multiple choice questions. There are no essay questions. There are no open-ended questions. Every single question is multiple choice. There are 4 answer options per question. So that means that the correct answer is staring back at you. And you will have 4 hours to sit for this exam, but I want you to remember that does not mean this is a 4-hour exam. The average amount of time that it took people last year to complete this exam was 2 hours and 45 minutes. We give you plenty of time. You will have time to check your work if you want to. So just know that 200 questions probably seems like a lot, but we are also very generous in the amount of time that you have to answer those. The score range is from 200 to 800, and 500 is the passing score. It is a firm number, so if you receive 498, it is not passing. You must have 500 or above to pass this exam. A lot of people worry about the pass rate. I held a webinar and somebody submitted a question that said, I heard 90% of people fail the CFRE exam. And I was like, I don't know who started that rumor, but it's just a rumor. Our actual pass rate last year was 78%. And I think when people hear a number that's not 100%, it makes them really nervous. But just remember, if 100% of people pass this exam, it wouldn't mean anything. So compared to other certifications, the PMP that has about a 62% pass rate, parts of the CPA exam have between a 48 and a 52% pass rate. So when you think about professional certifications, the CFRE is a very manageable certification. It is not graded on a curve, so we are only looking at your score, right? Your performance, your outcome has nothing to do with how anyone else did that day. It's not graded on a curve. I also hear people say, oh, I've heard the exam is just full of all these questions that are trying to trip you up. And let's dispel that myth. It is not full of trick questions. There are no trick questions. Our aim is to make sure that you know best practice fundraising so that you can become a CFRE, right? Our goal is we want there to be more CFREs. Your goal is to become a CFRE. So we're not going to create an exam that nobody can pass or that's riddled with questions that are impossible. The exam questions are focused on fundraising best practices, and they're written at the 5-year practice level. If you've been in fundraising for 5 or more years, then you're going to find that this aligns to your practice level pretty well. If you've been in fundraising for fewer than 5 years, you can absolutely sit for the exam. The application requirement is that you need to have 3 years in a paid professional fundraising role. So if you're somewhere in that 3 to 5 year mark, just know that you will need to do more studying. And I'm going to tell you down the line about our study hour recommendations. And the exam is not about rote memorization, right? We're not asking you to memorize 100 statistics and 100 definitions of different glossary terms, right? This is about best practice fundraising. So don't think that you're expected to sit and memorize any textbooks end to end. It's not an exam like that. The exam questions are not country specific. So our exam is global. So whether you take it in Vancouver or you take it in London or Auckland or Miami, it's all the same set of questions. However, none of those questions are country specific. And we've heard people say, oh, I've heard that this is a very American exam, and that is not true. Our exam committee is made up of people from all over the world, and those are the people that write the questions. So these do not lean towards one country or another. It's completely global. When you're anxious, it's really natural for you to speed up. And we encourage you, as you go through the exam, to slow down and read every word in every question. Read all 4 answer options. I know this sounds really obvious, but when the clock is ticking, people start to panic. And when you panic, you don't get a good score. Slow yourself down, read every single word, make sure the word through doesn't look like the word thorough, be very, very careful in that. and then you're going to select the best answer. More than one answer may look good to you, but you need to determine which is the best. Only one can be the best. All right. Now let's take a look here about what the exam covers. It goes across 6 knowledge domains that you can see on your screen here. We're very, very upfront with you about what the exam covers. You will see on your screen that securing the gift and relationship building together comprise 49% of the exam. Absolutely, positively devote study time to those areas, right? You're going to want to devote study time to any area that you feel you haven't had direct professional experience with or that you're unfamiliar with. But even if you live and breathe securing the gift and relationship building, please, please don't sell yourself short and make sure that you devote study time there. On our website, and also in the follow-up email I'll send you, is our test content outline. This breaks down for you what falls under each of those 6 knowledge domains, right? Because when I say current and prospective donor research, I mean, that's a massive headline, isn't it? So we break down here. So you're looking at your screen, you can see that there are all of these bullet points. My recommendation to you is print this off and grab a highlighter. Highlight everything that you are not familiar with or that you don't feel confident you could answer an exam question on. And then use that to guide your studying, right? Because you don't want to spend a whole bunch of time studying things that you know backwards and forwards, right? If you have been doing volunteer management for 20 years, you know, the volunteer section, that might be something where you don't need to devote as much study time. So now we've got 2 sample questions. These do not appear on the live exam, but they're going to give you a taste of how the exam is worded and what we're looking for. All right, so everybody make sure you're looking at your screen here. The question asks, what considerations must be made when accepting a non-cash gift, such as securities, property, etc.? 1, the likelihood of the property being sold for cash. 2, the value of the gift and tax implications for accepting it. 3, the gift's appropriateness relative to the organization's gift acceptance policy. Or 4, the timing of the gift relative to the annual campaign. So I'll give you a few seconds to think on that. All right, everybody have your answer? And the correct answer is 3, right? Your first stop always is your gift acceptance policy, right? That's best practice fundraising. And I always use the example, if Philip Morris, the tobacco cigarette manufacturer, came to you and said, we want to donate 500 acres in North Carolina to your organization. If your gift acceptance policy says that you cannot take any gift from a tobacco manufacturer, right, that puts the kibosh on it right there, right? These other things don't apply. That's why your gift acceptance policy is your first port of call. On to our second sample question here. When a donor wishes to make a planned gift/bequest to the endowment fund, the fundraising officer should first, and this is important because there will be questions on this exam that ask you what you would do first, okay? 1, offer to contact the donor's financial organization and advisor. 2, explore what the donor wishes to accomplish with the gift. 3, identify and share with the donor the organization's future needs. 4, introduce the donor to various planned giving options. And again, we'll take a few seconds for you to think on that. All right. And the correct answer is number 2. You want to first ask the donor and explore with them what they are looking to achieve with their gift. All right, so with that, we're going to head on over to our first question break, and my colleague Paul Cavazos is going to read out some of the questions that have been submitted so far.
Thanks, Ashley. It's been kind of quiet, so don't be shy. If you have questions, please feel free to send them to us either here in the chat or at succeed@cfre.org. So I have 2 questions. How many chances do you get to pass the exam if you fail it within your year to sit for the exam?
Sure. So you can retake the exam. It's a $375 US fee, and you have 3 attempts on 1 application. And I want to say straight off the bat, please, please, please don't start thinking about failing the exam before you started studying or doing anything else. It's a really common thing that people ask, well, what happens if I don't pass the exam? Try to think positively. Don't go into a catastrophic mode of thinking.
Great. Next question. Let's see. Is there a time limit based on continuing education?
Yes, so I think this person is asking about the application. That's a separate webinar that we run, but I can go ahead and answer that. So if you have continuing education in your application, everything going back 5 years that's fundraising related is what's going to count. So essentially, if you want to submit your application to count anything from 2016, you need to have your application in on or before December 31st, 2021. The only exception to this is that your academic degrees can be from any year or any major, but everything else needs to be within the last 5 years.
Great. Will you be able to see what questions that you got wrong?
You will not see the questions that you got right or wrong, and that is to protect the integrity of the exam. We have this very under lock and key. We do not want any question leaking. We don't want questions circulating on the internet. So to ensure a level playing field for everyone, we do not show you what you got right and what you got wrong.
Great. Where do I locate study materials?
Oh, perfect. On our website. So if you go to our homepage, you will see a menu item that says study aids, and that's where they're all living.
Great. We got a question about needing accommodations for the exam. So I'll take that one, Ashley, if you don't mind.
Sure.
When you're filling out the application, there's a section in step 4 where you are required to upload your supporting documentation if you do need to request special accommodations. So that would include a note from a medical professional detailing exactly what sort of accommodations you'll need. Then CFRE will work with you to get those accommodations set up.
Perfect. All right, great. Thanks for that, Paul. And we will head back into the presentation, and we do have another question break coming up.
Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. We often get a lot of questions from people saying, well, what should I study? And there's not one blanket thing I can tell you, because you might be somebody who has been in the major donor world for 15 years with 3 years in database management, and then somebody else might have 6 years in volunteer management, right? So everyone's coming to this with a different set of background and experiences. So you want to honestly evaluate your own strengths and weaknesses. What have you done in your job? What have you not done in your job? Review the test content outline like I recommended earlier, because that's going to be your checklist so that you can know precisely where the gaps in your fundraising knowledge are. Take, like I said, that test content outline and highlight anything that feels unfamiliar to you. And then you're going to use our resource reading list, which I'll talk about more on the following slide. That has our list of books, and from there you can determine what books you need to read. So looking to the resource reading list, we have 14 books on that list, and then people freak out and say, oh my gosh, I have to read 14 books. And no, you do not have to read 14 books. We recommend that you read 1 to 3, the ones that address any gaps in knowledge that you have with your fundraising. I'm a really frugal person. If you're a really frugal person and you don't necessarily want to purchase any books, you can contact your library. Most libraries have a budget for requests. A lot of times new CFREs in your area will be open to lending their books out. If you are part of a study group, you may want to divide and conquer with the other people in the study group who purchases what. And we have had people tell us that their employer bought the books for them, and that was one way that they supported them on their CFRE journey. So this slide and the next one are my 2 Amazon hacks for you. So have a look here. This book is from our resource reading list. It's called Fundraising Basics, and it is a comprehensive text. So it takes into account all 6 knowledge domains. And if you look at your screen here, you will see that there is the ability for you to rent this book. The renting of the book is about half the cost of purchasing it. And the way that the Amazon rental program works is like college semesters. So I just took this screenshot this morning. So if you were to rent this book, the due date for it is August 11th, and then you return that book. So if you are a person that procrastinates, it may be very helpful for you to get a book that has a due date like this. Another mega popular book that people use is Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, and you can see that here. This, again, is a comprehensive book. We have many people select this book as the only one they use to study. If you want to access this for free, there is frequently an Amazon program or promotion where you can get this audiobook for free with an Audible Plus trial. So if you like audiobooks and you would like to get the material in this book for free, check out this audiobook option. And this is available, I've seen it on the US, Canadian, and UK Amazon sites. As part of your studying, you will need to review the glossary. This is on our website, and it is the language of the exam. So if you're worried and you think, I work for a small charity in Calgary, and I don't know that we're using exactly the nomenclature that is recognized worldwide or that might be on the CFRE exam, no worries. Read the glossary. It will spell out everything. So when we say this word, you'll know precisely what we mean, and you will feel very confident going into the exam because all of the language will feel familiar to you. To prepare a study plan, you may want to pick times and days of the week, right? You might want to say 7 to 9 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to study. You may want to set a timer on your phone. One of the biggest issues people have when studying now is being distracted by their phone. And if you can keep the phone out of the room where you're studying, that's awesome. But if that's your only way to check the time, just put a timer on the phone so that you can hear it and you'll know, okay, my 2-hour window for studying is finished. You may also want to set a weekly page goal. If you want to read 50 pages a week, that's 7 pages a day, right? Super easy, super achievable. By doing these things, you will help yourself stay accountable and you'll know if you're falling short, right? If it's on day 6 and you go, oh my gosh, I've only read 24 pages this week, you'll know, okay, I got to get it together and make up the difference tomorrow. On our website, we offer a free PDF of a study plan template. You can download this. It's got a little checklist and it takes you through everything that you should do to formulate your study plan and stick to it. We have an example of a study schedule here. Let's say you wanted to study for 2 hours a day, 4 days a week over the course of 8 weeks. Our recommendation is that you start with the glossary, always start with the glossary, and then look at one domain per week. I've heard a number of people have done this. Then your final week, your next to final week, week 7, review the areas that you feel weakest on, and then on week 8, read the glossary one final time and read your notes one final time. If you want to do this over a longer period of time than 8 weeks, it's super easy to make this a 16-week plan, right? Just take 2 weeks to do each of these items. So this is not the kind of exam where your life is going to go on hold for 6 months and you're not going to see your own relatives, right? It's not that kind of thing where you will not have a life because you're studying. We're often asked, how long should I study? We did a survey a few years ago of people who successfully passed the exam, and here's what they told us. You can see here exactly how long people studied. The sweet spot is that 21 to 40 hour mark, right? We had about a third of people there. Obviously, some people went higher, some people went lower. Our recommendation is that if you have fewer than 5 years experience in fundraising, to study at least 80 hours because the exam is written at the 5-year practice level. A lot of people feel anxious about this exam, and it puts them off becoming a CFRE, which is a real shame because we know CFREs earn far more money than non-CFREs, right? You don't want to cheat yourself out of your future earning potential, your future job opportunities. So please do not let anxiety about this exam push you off track from reaching your goal of becoming a CFRE. To beat test anxiety, adequately prepare, right? The better you prepare, the more confident you're going to feel in your skills and abilities. You're smarter and more experienced than you've ever been in this moment, right? I can't even tell you, back when we were at in-person conferences and I would staff our booth, how many people would come up to me and say, Ashley, I'm just a bad test taker. I'm so bad at tests. And I'd say, well, when's the last time you took a test? University, college, something 15, 20 years ago. This is not an exam about chemistry or statistics, right? This is an exam about your chosen profession. This is what you do day in, day out. It's not some foreign concept and you're just trying to study so you can get credit for the semester's class, right? Just remind yourself how smart you are about fundraising and the experience that you have in this field. Don't worry about what happened to you in the 90s or 10 years ago when you took an exam, right? Today is a new day, so don't worry about that. Remind yourself that you have ample time. You have 4 hours to sit for this exam. You are going to have enough time unless, for some reason you get hung up on a question for 25 minutes. Obviously, that's going to be an issue. But if you keep yourself moving, you are going to find that you have ample time. Many, many people love a study group. It's great because it can keep you accountable and it can help you meet other people who are sharing in the same experience that you are. Obviously, it's 2021. You could have an in-person, maybe in person. I don't know where you are, what your status is with things, but possibly in person, or of course, virtual study group. We have a study group page on our website. Have a look there. There are currently 2 virtual study groups I know of that are listed there. LinkedIn is a great place to put out the call and say, hey, I'm going to study for my CFRE exam. Who do I know that's interested in joining me on this? If you are a member of a professional organization like AFP, AHP, CAGP, etc., you can always ask their administrator, hey, could you put a note in the Next newsletter or on our social media accounts, letting people know that I want to find a study buddy or a study group. And you might be surprised who out there is looking for someone to study with. All right. And we also have CFRE Central. So for everyone who has started your application, you automatically have free access to CFRE Central. This is our free online community. You can find so many people in there looking for study buddies, looking for people to study with. There are also people in there who have not been successful in the exam that are really candid about where they went wrong with their studying. So have a look in CFRE Central because you're going to find a lot of really relevant information there. For a study group format, you're going to want to decide how often and at what time you want to meet, right? You don't want to just say, hey, let's just do this whenever we're all free. And then the next thing you know, like 3 weeks have passed and you still haven't met. Ask who's the subject matter expert. If you have somebody that's a subject matter expert in bequests, they may be able to make a small presentation to the study group about the bequest items that are covered by the test content outline. Make and share flashcards. If you're meeting in person, everybody could make flashcards for 1 knowledge domain or 2 knowledge domains if you only have 3 people, right? And then you could share them amongst yourselves. Also remember, you don't need a minimum number of people. So don't get discouraged if only one person wants to study with you. I mean, all you really need is one good study person. Share those books, be each other's cheerleaders. We hear this time and time again from people who were in a study group, and they said, it was so awesome to have people that kept me motivated. We have a CFRE practice exam, and the number one thing I want to stress about this is that you do not have to use it. If you don't want to pay the money for it, I get it. It's not required at all. The cost is $59.95 US for a 30-day subscription, or $99.95 US for a 90-day subscription. It has a bank of 100 questions across all 6 knowledge domains, and they're like the sample questions that we looked at together today. You can take the practice exam, and it is going to show you everything that you got right and that you got wrong. So for people who look at that test content outline and go like, oh my gosh, I still don't know what I'm going to do here, the practice exam is a great way to know definitively what knowledge you have about these topics. So it's a great way to identify your strengths and weaknesses. And if you're looking for it, it's in the study aid section of our website. Just click that drop down menu there, and that's where you're going to find it. We also debuted an exam compass study guide last year. Again, you do not have to purchase this if you do not want to. It's $49.99 US, and it's available at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. You can find it in a print format or a digital format, whichever you prefer. It has a series of practice questions, and then there's a lot of space in there for you to reflect back on your own knowledge so that you can have a clear picture of what you need to study. I will say, even if you use either this study guide or the practice exam, you will still need to purchase a textbook, right? These in and of themselves are not going to necessarily teach you what you need to know for the exam, but these are going to help you determine what you need to study. The study guide is also great to help you stick to your study plan. We had a question in the last question break come in about accommodations, and we are more than happy to help you with that. So if you need more time because you have dyslexia, you have a mobility concern, anything like that, we are 100% here for you. We want you to have the best test taking experience possible. So if you do need an accommodation for any reason, reach out to Paul and the certification team, and they will be more than happy to work with you. There is no charge, but keep in mind that we do need 60 days notice because we need to make sure that we can ensure that accommodation is there for you. So if you submit your application on July 15th and you want to sit for the exam on July 30th, that's not going to be enough time for us to guarantee we can honor your accommodation request. Now, the day before the exam, consider taking this day off work. This is a tip that I received from a CFRE in Pittsburgh, and she did this, and I've actually had a number of other people tell me they did it as well. If you will sit for the exam on a Saturday, you do not want to go into work on Friday and have a really, really bad work day. You do not want your boss asking you to stay till 9 p.m., right? So take that day off work and get yourself into a positive, serene frame of mind for taking the exam. Reread your notes one final time. Clearly, it's too late to start studying new information now, but reread what your notes say. Absolutely reread the glossary one final time. And remind yourself of how thoroughly you have prepared for this exam, right? You want to be cool, calm, and collected as much as you can when you go to sit for it. The night before the exam, don't cram. Get 8 hours of sleep. I know it sounds really obvious. As an insomniac myself, I can tell you, you will want 8 hours of sleep, right, when you're taking a big exam. And if you're going to sit for the exam in person, know your route to the test center in advance. Many people practice driving there before, or if they're going to take public transit, just to make sure that they feel comfortable in where they're going. Also, make sure you know whether or not you need money for parking. And you will need to plan to arrive at least 45 minutes prior to your scheduled exam time. There is a very thorough check-in process. So if you arrive 2 minutes before your exam time is supposed to start, you are going to be in a bad position because it's going to take you time for them to check your ID. They have to make sure you don't bring certain things into the room, which we'll get into in a second. So give yourself plenty of time. And have a full breakfast because you're not going to be able to eat at all during the exam unless you have a medical reason and requested an accommodation. All right, so with that, we are now at our second question break. And Paul, if we had any more questions come in.
Yeah, now the questions are rolling. Thanks, everyone. So this one's coming up a lot, and how soon after a candidate sits for the exam will they receive their score?
Yeah, sure. Paul, do you want to talk for a second about what that process looks like for the candidate?
Yeah, so you'll be emailed a link to your score report within 12 hours after you sit for the exam. So just keep checking your email. It'll come eventually, and then once you receive that link, you can either follow the link to view your score report, or you can log back into your Pearson VUE account where there should be a copy as well. Okay, next question. Can you take the test from home? This one is one we're getting a lot, so I thought it's worth repeating. Can you take the test from home, or do you need to go to an exam center?
You can take the exam from home, and I'm not going to elaborate any more on that right now because I have a whole slide coming up that I'm going to go through with you about that.
Great. So you mentioned that there's 1 year from the application approval to sit for the exam. Do you need to take the exam during the first window immediately following your application date? So when you submit the application?
No. So you will have up to 1 year to sit for the exam, but let's say today is June 22nd. I submit my application today. The last test window just ended June 15th. So that would mean that I would have until June 15th of 2022 to sit for the exam.
Perfect. This is a great question. So the Fundraising Basics book, which is on our resource reading list, was printed in 2009. Is the book still relevant for this exam?
Yes, it is. And we get that question a lot. We have an exam committee that updates our book list periodically, and they were meant to meet last year, which obviously was not able to happen. But the best practice information in that book is still relevant, yes.
And you'll notice that a lot of the books on the resource reading list do have publication dates that occurred some time ago, but again, they're all still relevant. So they're, definitely look into those books as part of your study plan.
The Achieving Excellence in Fundraising 4th edition, which is on our resource reading list, that's the one I showed you that you can get the free audiobook of. That was from 2016, and people love that book. I mean, they tell me all the time, like after I studied, I kept that book by my desk and I reference it still to this day. So if you are looking for something that's a bit more recent but mega practical, that might be a good avenue for you.
Perfect. This is a really great question. Do you know what the success rate is compared to years of experience? For example, do people with, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
We did not ask that when we did the survey about the people who passed the exam. We did not ask them how many years of experience they had. I will tell you this, though, that every year, right, so we looked at that stat that 78% of people passed, meaning 22% of people did not pass last year. Every single year, I don't know why, people decide that they're not going to study. And they go, you know what? I've been in development for 16 years. I'm going to sign up for this exam and I'm just going to go take it. And it does not go well. And they're in that 22%. So that is one thing that I would say, just because you have a lot of years of experience doesn't mean that you won't need to study or that the amount of time you need to study will be less necessarily. I think you're still going to need to look at that 40-hour mark.
Perfect. Here's a really great question as well. Can you skip a question and come back to it?
Yes.
Perfect. I do have one thing I'd like to share that somebody wrote in and said that the glossary is an extremely useful resource. So thank you for that feedback. We definitely recommend taking a look at the glossary as part of your preparation efforts. And that's it. Thanks, Ashley.
Oh, thanks so much, Paul. On exam day, there's going to be the admissions process, and you will need your 2 forms of government issued ID. And I will say, I think, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong here, if you don't have a second photo ID, I think they can take what, a credit card or your health insurance card, is that right?
Yeah, so anything with your name printed on it should work as long as it's something formally issued. So like a credit card would work, a student ID, something like that. But definitely you'll need the government issued ID that shows your photo and your full name as you submit it in the application.
Perfect. So one of those forms of ID, like Paul just said, needs to have your signature and photo on it. And the name on your ID must match what you told us your name was when you submitted your application, because we're going to put that on your authorization to test letter. So if you get married, something happens and your name changes, at some point during the CFRE process, let us know. Email succeed@cfre.org, because if you get to the test center and your name has changed, it's going to be a hiccup, and we don't want you to have to deal with that. There are a number of things that are not allowed in the testing area if you go in person. And honestly, this applies if you sit for the exam from home too. There's no food or drink. The one difference is if you sit for the exam at the test center, there's a water cooler. If you are at home, there's nothing. You cannot have a glass of water at your desk, nothing. They do not want anyone spilling liquids on their keyboard while taking the exam and messing the whole thing up, right? Whether that's your home keyboard that impedes your own test taking experience, or at the test center you spilling stuff and now these people have to replace the keyboard, right? There's no books, there's no papers, there's no calculators, and there's definitely no cell phones. If you take the exam at a test center, a lot of people get freaked out to be separated from their cell phone. Either leave it in your car, or there's going to be a locker at the test center, physical location, that you can put your items in. You can put your handbag, your phone, whatever in there. Now we're going to talk about our 2 options to sit for the exam. So one is from your home or office with a product called OnView. This is from our test center partner, Pearson VUE, who they run the in-person test center. So it's essentially all one company. If you take the exam from your home or office, you need to be aware of certain things. We debuted this in January of this year, and we are finding that people do not like it. People thought, I'm going to be so much more relaxed. It's going to be great not to travel. I'm concerned about COVID, all of these things, right? But what people are finding is that they're actually really distracted. You cannot leave the room for anything. So if the delivery person knocks on your door, you cannot get up. If you hear a child crying in the other room, you will need somebody else at home to help you out with that. You cannot get up from the in front of the laptop while you are taking this exam. So keep that in mind. Obviously, if you have a medical issue, you are concerned about COVID, we want you to feel comfortable, and we are very glad that we can offer you this. But I want to be super candid with you about the feedback that we're getting back from test takers. Your computer must be able to pass the OnView systems check, and there's information about that on the Pearson VUE website. You cannot leave the room for any reason. You cannot use the restroom. If you go in person to a test center, you can use the restroom. The clock will keep ticking. But if you are at home, there is no ability to use the restroom, because they do not want you going into the restroom and looking up information. They do not want you to have notes stashed in your restroom. No pets or people can be in the room at all. So, your cat's scratching at the door, freaking out that she wants to get in. You cannot open the door. You cannot get up and let any pets or people into the room. There's no food, drink, or medication. If you need medication, that would be under the special accommodations, and you can speak to Paul about that. But that would be for the in-person test center because they do not want any liquids. They do not want anything like that around your workstation. There's going to be an online proctor, which if you've never experienced an online proctor before, the way it works is you have to have the camera on your computer on, and there's somebody on the other side of that watching you take the exam. So if you get up, that's how someone is going to know. If all of a sudden you start staring at the ceiling for 2 minutes, they might be like, are there notes up on the ceiling? And before you take this from home, they will make you take your computer screen and with the camera and show them all around the room that you don't have, Post-it notes with different fundraising facts or, whatever on that. So just be aware that your office is going to need to be, very tidied up. There cannot be anything like that lying around at all. If you go to the in-person test center, you can see here, pearsonvue.com/CFRE is the website where you're going to find your nearest test center. Please, please do not ask our certification team today to look this up for you. This is self-serve. Go to that URL and enter your postal code or your zip code, and it will show you all of the test centers near you. So the current screenshot you're looking at here is from Atlanta, and you can see there's a map that shows you where those test centers are, and on the left there is a list, and it will show you where they are. If any of the test centers don't have an elevator, it will tell you that. So if you have mobility considerations, all of that information is available on Pearson VUE, so you can feel confident that there will be an elevator, and you'll be able to see that through the different listings. This is what the room looks like more or less. There's individual testing stations and security cameras. The test centers are all following COVID protocols. I know a couple months ago they were leaving empty test banks between individuals. I'm not entirely sure if they're still doing that, but they're all following local COVID protocols. When you go in person, wear layers. The temperature can fluctuate wildly. As I said before, you can get up to use the restroom, and you will be given scratch paper or a small whiteboard. So if you need to write down the numbers of the questions that you want to go back and check, you'll be able to do that. And it's not just a room for CFRE exams. The testing center is going to have people taking all kinds of exams in there. And I bring that up because we've had people say, oh, I thought I would go in and it would just be this cohort of CFREs and we all high five at the end. And it would be cool if it were like that. But, it's people taking a whole bunch of exams in that room. And again, like I said, you're going to have access to a water cooler. When you take the exam, number one, don't panic. Relax, breathe carefully, slow yourself down, and flag any questions that you need to come back to. Remember, there's not necessarily a penalty for a wrong answer, right? So you're better to answer something than to leave it blank. This here on your screen is a screenshot of what Pearson VUE offers you. If you want to take it, there is a little 15-minute tutorial where you can see what the interface will look like. You can do this now, right? Like that's how I did it. Just it's available online from their website. And you'll see here that it's going to show you how much time you have left. It's going to show you which question you're on out of how many questions. So you will not lose your place. You're always going to know precisely where you are in the exam. And then as we've said a few times today, you're going to be able to move backwards and forwards. Super easy, right? These two buttons down the bottom, very intuitive. When you finish, like Paul said, you're going to get in about 12 hours that email with your score report. It may take you up to 48 hours, but you're going to receive that to your email address. Within 1 week, you're going to receive a digital badge, and I'll show you on the next screen what that looks like. And then within 1 month, you will receive your hard copy certificate in the mail. We mail certificates in a batch every month. So we don't, if you pass the exam on a Tuesday. It's not that your certificate drops in the mail on Wednesday. This badge that you see here is free, or it's, you're not going to pay anything for it. It's part of your application fee. This is an actual one from somebody who became a CFRE last year. And if you look at that red box, it got 147 reactions and 32 comments. I scrubbed all of this person's identifying information. These are a fabulous, effective way to announce that you are a CFRE to your professional network. People love these. They get a ton of response online. You will, when you're a successful candidate, you're going to be included in our Find a CFRE web tool. So you've probably seen that on the top of our website. It says Find a CFRE. So if anyone needs to verify that you're a CFRE, they can just go in there, type in your name, and they will be able to find you. If you are unsuccessful on the exam, there's a 30-day wait period before you can sit for it again. And there's a $375 US retake fee. So don't worry about that though. Study thoroughly the first time. All right, so with that, we've come to the end of our presentation, and we've got a little under 10 minutes left to address any questions that have come in.
Great. So what happens if you don't have time to complete all the questions? Are they marked incorrect?
So we're counting what you got right. So if you didn't answer it, it's not going to be scored. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And okay, perfect. If you have already signed up to take the exam from home, but would now rather go to a testing center, can you change that?
Paul, can you tell me a little bit about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So you definitely can change it. What you would need to do is just cancel your scheduled exam and then reschedule through the in-person testing, and that can all be done through your Pearson VUE account. As long as you are moving within the same window, there's no fee to do so. If you need to move to a different window, you'd have to pay $35. Let's see here. Let's see. So a lot of these are great questions. Thanks again, everyone. If we don't get to your questions, again, please email us at succeed@cfre.org. So I have some questions about finding availability for the exam at in-person testing. So I will say that we are still seeing some limited availability depending on your location and mostly due to COVID restrictions. But we are continuing to see exam sites open up back to full capacity. So if you're not seeing anything in your area right now, keep checking back to see if anything opens up. Ultimately, we can always move you to the next exam window, or you can choose the remote exam option, which offers a lot more availability if you're not seeing anything in person. Let's see. So as far as those sample questions go that you've been asking, Ashley, are those available anywhere on the website?
I think they're from the Exam Compass study book. They're not on the website though. We don't have any, we just offer sample questions through these webinars like that. And then through the products in the study aid section.
Here's a great question. What happens if you have technical issues during the remote exam?
Yeah.
And I'll be happy to answer that
yeah,
one. So sure. So it's we have seen this happen before. Unfortunately, if something does happen, a technical issue during the exam, most likely they will cancel your exam. Depending on whether the issue was on the candidate side or Pearson VUE side, we'll have to review the case report. Definitely make sure if something does happen during your exam, if you're doing the remote exam and something happens, to contact Pearson VUE to file a case report. That's really important for us to be able to follow through and determine what next steps would be. What resource book do most test takers use?
The one that I hear the most is that Achieving Excellence in Fundraising book, because it is a comprehensive text. So many people purchase or acquire just that one book, and then they don't worry about any other books since that one covers all 6 knowledge domains.
Great. Again, I know you've covered this, but just to go over this again, how long do you suggest us candidates study for the exam?
At least 40 hours A great way to look at it is 40 to 80 hours. And if you have fewer than 5 years of professional fundraising experience, you're going to definitely want to be at the 80-hour mark.
Perfect. So we had a question from someone in France wanting to know if they would be able to find exam sites in their area.
Yes, it is global. So Pearson VUE does have test centers in France.
Perfect.
And again, if you live somewhere where there isn't one convenient to you, there is always that at-home option.
Let's see. I think that's it. I think those are all the great questions that I can ask. Again, if we didn't get to your question, or if you have something more in-depth or specific to your own application, please email us at succeed@cfre.org, and we'd be happy to answer it there.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Paul. And thank you, everyone who joined us today. As I said, check your inbox. Within 24 hours, you're going to receive a link to a PDF of the slides, as well as a recording of the webinar. We look forward to welcoming you to the CFRE family. We wish you all the best for your CFRE exam test taking. And again, like Paul said, if you have any questions, drop us a line. We are here to support you. Thank you so much. Take care.